Chapter 3. Visit to the Graveyard. "Your what?" Nate yelled. "My body. I wasn't born a ghost, dummy. I used to have a body." "Well, what did you do with it? How can you lose your body?" "Maybe it's in the cemetery. Go a quarter mile down that way and look up the hill," Nate offered. "You can't miss it. It's the place with all the tombstones." "I'm dead, not stupid," she replied. "The cemetery is where I want to be. It's safer there, and there are more my kind of folks. I also might like to go to other places, but I can't do that if I don't start in a cemetery." "Well, that's your answer. Go to the cemetery. Problem solved." "I would if I could. Come on, I'll show you." She headed out to the road toward the cemetery. Nate watched her go, thinking that this might be a good time to make a run for it. She turned, and her eyes started to glow a deep red. "Don't even think about it. I'm tired of messing around, and you know I can make you regret it. Come on." Then she turned and continued toward the road. Nate sighed and followed. "Say," he called after her, "do you have a name?" "Of course I got a name. What kind of question is that?" "Well, want to tell me what it is? Or should I call you Drippy?" She didn't even slow. "Mattie. You can call me Mattie. Try calling me Drippy and see how many parts of you end up twisted in ways you never thought possible." She walked fast, and Nate had to nearly jog to keep up. "Aren't you worried about someone seeing you? You kind of stand out. I mean, people don't usually walk down the road dripping." She shook her head. "Most folks don't see me. I can go nearly anywhere I want as long as I stay around town." She stopped and looked at him. "Sometimes I wish folks could see me. Hard to make friends when people look right through you." She turned and continued down the road. "You're the first in a while. No one has been able to help. That's why I'm almost out of time." They approached the short, steep driveway which led to the cemetery. Mattie didn't slow down a bit. If anything, she sped up while Nate huffed behind her. "Can't we go a little slower? What's your hurry? You afraid you're not going to still be dead when we get there?" Mattie didn't slow or turn. "Gotta hurry. Once the Major sees I'm here, the squawking starts." "The Major?" Nate had been to the cemetery a couple of times. It was small but tidy. The people in town took their graveyard seriously. There were regular cleanup days, the grass was kept mowed, and the forest was kept trimmed back around the edges. Different garden clubs seemed to compete to have the nicest flower plantings. It was on a steep hill that overlooked the brook and was a quiet place he could be alone. Some gravestones dated back to the mid-1800s. He liked to wander between the stones, picking out the names, wondering about the lives of the people who were buried there. It was always empty, too, so he never had to worry about people trying to make friends because he and his mom were the new folks in town. However, today the cemetery was full of people. Nate had only seen so many people in Beckett on town fair day. There were clusters of people all over the place, most of them dressed up like they were going to church or something. Maybe there was a funeral going on. "Mattie, don't," he called out. "Let's come back when there's nobody here. I can't talk to you with all these folks around. They'll think I'm nuts." "Don't worry," she said, heading toward a group of ladies who looked like they were discussing the plantings near the front gates. Nate figured they were from the local garden club. He sighed. They were going to try every kind of way they could to find out about his mom and why she was back in her aunt's big falling down house after so many years away. One of the ladies looked up from the flowers and smiled at Mattie. She was short and round, with eyes that sparkled, surrounded by laugh lines. "Hello, dear. It's been a while since you came to visit." The lady looked past Mattie at Nate and gave a little squeak of pleasure and surprise. "Why, is that Nathaniel, all grown up?" Nate, still puffing from the fast walk and the hill, looked suspiciously at the lady. "You know me?" She smiled and nodded. "I most certainly do. Of course it's been a few years. You were only 5 at the time, and I couldn't see so well. That was the last time I was here. Mom brought me with her 'cause her Aunt May was dying. I don't remember going anywhere. We just stayed in the house, and we left a couple of days later because," she nodded, "because I died." Nate's mouth dropped open and he took a step back, looking around wildly. "You mean that?" She nodded and smiled brightly. "Of course, dear. Who else do you think you'd see in a cemetery? She gestured to the other ladies. We're all ghosts here. Nate suddenly felt a pounding in his ears, and the world started to spin. His eyes rolled back, and he slumped to the ground.